Have you ever visited Denmark's tallest building that stands at the edge of the sea? This is the third episode where we'll explore a new landmark in Aarhus to understand how a building can contribute to restore sea biodiversity. Then we'll continue north to see how the cities of North Jutland differ from Copenhagen and how a Seamen's home has been transformed into a hotel, adapting to changing conditions within maritime life. This road trip was made in collaboration with Clever, a leading Danish company in electric vehicle charging.
This morning we have started our journey from Middelfart on the island Fyn, and our first stop point is the nearest Clever charging station in Fredericia, in South Jutland. This station is designed by Kompas architects, as well as other stations we have visited in previous episodes. A calm, green oasis for travelers. Now we are ready to go north.
After 100 kilometers, we arrived in Aarhus, one of Denmark's oldest cities, rooted in Viking age. It was a strategically important center for trade and seafaring. The growing influence of the Church during the Middle Ages gradually turned Aarhus into a prosperous religious center. Since the early 2000s, the city has been growing rapidly and is expected to grow until at least 2030. You can find more about Aarhus on our channel. This time we visit only Aarhus Ø, a redeveloped lockland neighborhood. It includes several notable architectural designs by Bjarkingels Group, Zebra, JDS Architects and 3XN. Today is one of the coldest days of this winter, and the wind is so strong that it's almost impossible to walk around here. Nevertheless, we are trying to take a little walk. You can see the iceberg buildings by JDS Architects and Zebra, and Aarhus residences by B. And the Lighthouse by 3XN that we came to visit too. The master plan of this neighborhood was also developed by B, that proposed to design the public space first and then turn the leftover areas into plots for future housing development.
The buildings are shaped by the life that preceded them.
Together with urban life expert Jan Gay, big strategy was to create a framework for maximum amount of activate with the minimum amount of built substance.
Aarhus Ø is one of the Northern Europe's largest harbor area transformations. It created a very close connection between city life and water in one integrated district. This scale and ambition make it a flagship example of how Danish cities can reinvent their waterfronts. The Lighthouse is a residential-led, mixed-use development that includes a high-rise structure with a group of mid-rise buildings to foster community and interaction. We are going to visit the lighthouse accompanied by Samuel Andreadis from Aarhus Øje.
What you see here is the model of the area out here, Aarhus Ø, which is a man-made structure. Back in up until the 90s, it was used as a place for containers and where the harbor would come in with the ships. And after they moved it out here, this was a completely empty area with nothing here. And there were some thoughts and some ideas floating around as what to do out here. One thing they knew they wanted was they wanted some life out here. So what they actually first thought of was building these, well, they were called Aarhus Ø, which is Aarhus Island, but also Ø is Øst in Danish, which is east, so it's sort of a play on word, but it were called the island gardens out here, which was 400 of these small gardens where people could rent them from time to get out here. It was actually the second largest sort of one of these communities in the world. What also came was were these beach volley lanes. So we started out with one beach volley and then there was a beach bar as well. That got really popular, especially with the young people. One of the first ideas out here was actually Lighthouse back in the start of the 2000s. The drawing was made by a company called 3XN, which is an architectural company from Aarhus. So instead, the first buildings we actually got were these, they're called the icebergs, which are right out here. You might have seen them as you walk past. And then so some of these buildings are actually around the lighthouse over here. And then in 2012, one of the companies who were one of the main people out here making the changes out in Aarhus called the Hammelhoff Group, they said to 3XN and government here that they wanted to build this lighthouse project again. And after getting all the allowance and everything that they needed, and then in 2017, they took the first stake into the ground to build this building. With them, they had, of course, the 3XN, the architects, which is 3XN stands for 3 times Nielsen, which is 3 brothers with the last name Nielsen, who started this architecture company in Aarhus and have since built buildings everywhere around the world. Most recently, Lighthouse and the big fish market in Sydney. If you heard about this one, they've been responsible for that as well. We like to say that it's all Danish made. They have, as for the engineers, it has been Per Aarslev and Rambøll, which are 2 very big Danish companies in engineering. Building was no easy task, especially the pillars holding it up underneath here. We have 1,600 of these small ones ranging from 2 to 15 meters. And then we have 28 of the large ones in going 70 meters below the ground and then 2 meters in diameter. And the way they did is actually unique. They haven't done that anywhere else in the world. That was our engineers that had the idea. So they took about 8 meters at a time, and you can actually see it here. They drilled 8 meters down, and then they put these armors around, these 8-meter long armors down, and then they put cement night, I think it's called. It's a lighter form of cement mixed with dirt and rocks, and they put that down with the armor so the hole wouldn't collapse down. And they did that, took 8 meters at a time, put the armor down, and put this cement night blending mixture in. And they did that until they were 70 meters down. They then put the cement underneath, and because the cement weighs more than the cement night, you can actually see it here, goes up to the top, and then they can then reuse that for the next pillar. This was not a cheap technique, which is why each of these pillars cost 2.5 million crowns, which is about, with some quick math, 350,000 euros per pillar down here. And you see the two pillars all the way to the right here, they were the test pillars to make sure that they could actually do this, and they also stimulated the weight of the building on top of these. Then right on top of the pillars, you have this big layer which is supposed to spread out the weight of the building to all the pillars. That was probably the most important thing, because if some of the cement hardened before the other and it was spread uneven, the whole thing would have been a waste. So the myth goes that we had, Denmark is sort of split into this Jutland, we have the Fyn, and then we have Sjælland where the Copenhagen is, that every cement truck in Jutland and the Fyn was here at the same time, going back and forth every hour within the 48 hours it took to put down this cement. And it worked. On top of that, we also have a parking garage in 2 layers. So there's a good 80 meters below the ground here as well for the building. The bottom layer was finished in the middle of 2020. So it took 3 years, and then it took another 2 years to build the top. So actually it took longer to build what you don't see below the ground than what is actually above the ground. We like to count the building as a whole. So we have this in the middle, which is called the tower. And then we have a house here and the promenade house over on the other side, which is all sort of combines to what we call Lighthouse. In total, there are 400 apartments around that. Some people have bought multiple apartments and put them together, so it's not quite 400 right now, but around that. And if we say 2.5 people per apartment, that's about 1,000 people who live in this building. One thing that's sort of a general thing out here on Aarhus Ø, we have got some critique from people who maybe haven't studied it properly or have learned about it probably, that it's sort of the rich man's playground out here if you look at all the building. But the philosophy out here is there's supposed to be space for everyone. So in Aarhus Ø you have student buildings, you have general housings, I think it is translated, where they have a loft on how much the rent can be so people can afford them. And then there are also some of these big apartments for the people who have a little bit more money in their pockets, which was also taken in by Lighthouse, but originally they were all for sale, and they are everywhere from the big penthouse apartments on the top floors for around 16 million crowns, 0.1 million, 2.2 million euros, to the smaller budget-friendly 2-bedroom, 60 square meter apartment, 60-70 square meter apartment for around 2 to 2.2 million crowns, which is 250,000 euros. So there is sort of this vision that there should be space for everyone. On top of that, there is a rule out here that you have to have someone living there. There has to be life out here, so you don't just get a bunch of rich people from outside the country buying big apartments and then there's no life and no one living out here. One thing we really like to brag about, and I would like to brag about as well, is that we have won these prizes over here. Last or 2 years ago, well, it's 3 years, we're in 2027, 2026 now. We won these at the Council on Tall Buildings and Urban Habitats, which are the big people within these tall buildings. We were at this conference, we won 3 prizes. We won the best tall building, best tall in overall category, and the most, and we won this award of excellence. And this year it was societal, health, and environmental. You can go out here, you can see the top, and you can go down and you can walk around right next to it. We have also had these playgrounds that are around this seal, these water-inspired ones, this crab, this whale, where kids can play as well. But some of the first people who actually here was a group of homeless people we invited in, local homeless people. Every week we have 4 to 5 school classes that come in here for free and get a tour, and we also build school program which they get up to. It can either be in math, something about the building, or it can be biology or history. We have a lot of elderly homes coming through for visits like that. On top of that, it's never quite environmentally friendly to build a big building like this, but we have tried our best, especially with what is around us. So what we have done is, out here in the water, there are these things called stone reefs, which is sort of a habitat, a natural park for the fish, where rocks are and sea plants can grow on, and that sort of gives oxygen to the water, and it makes a place for small fish and crabs and things like that to hide away from. What unfortunately has been done through the last 250 years is they have been fished up to make bricks and sidewalks and things like this. And you can imagine if there's no place for the sea plants to grow and there's no place for the small fish to hide, there's not a lot of fish that can actually survive in this water. So what we have done in the building of Aarhus Ø and the building of Lighthouse here is every time we found rocks, while, for example, digging up the underground here, we have collected them over in what is called Pier 3, sailed them out and established these stone reefs again. We have also thrown 10,000 mussels into the canals here to create some life, and when there was leftover cement, it was put into this cement former with a rod in the middle, so it made these donut forms which work perfectly for this as well. So things like that is both our societal and our environmental things are what contributed to us winning the prize. As for the interior design in this place here, we have, again, this connection between the water and the city is what we're trying to replicate. So the ground here is a terrazzo floor, but with mussels and rocks and things like that taken right out here from the coast and put down into this terrazzo floor. And on top we have this bent metal coating, sort of to stimulate that you're underneath the water and looking up at the sun through the water, and this is the sand bottom down here. In the worst conditions, which we call like a 200-year event, because it only happens about every 200 years that there is this big of a wind in Denmark, it can sway up to 50 centimeters to the side. The most we've measured it to is about 17, 18 centimeters. It stormed a lot about 2.5 years ago. So we haven't even gotten close to that. But since it's made in cement, I don't know if it's the same name for it. It's made in what we call the Cement 80, the building, which is the same cement we've used for our bridge between our islands out here. If it was built in a different material as steel or something, it would actually have been 3 times as much. So it'd be 1.5 meters and it would have swayed. You can't feel it unless it is like a storm and you're standing at the top. It was just made for the aesthetic, but what it actually ended up doing is that these facades, they sort of push the wind to the side, so the building doesn't sway as much as it was actually measured to do, because these sway them to the side. And it's sort of made to, so it's called Lighthouse, so it's of course taking inspiration from the old, you can almost see one here down lighthouses that were at the harbor, of course, bigger one, and it's also sort of in the shape of a cruise ship, if you look at it like that, the way that it has the combination with the water, and it's supposed to be this connection between the city and the water, and our exhibition as well is called The City and the Bay.
It is time to go to the next city, Aalborg. But before, we have a fast stop to recharge the car near the city, at the wooden clever station in Nørresundby, designed by Kompas. We now arrive to the Kompas Hotel in the center of Aalborg, with its warming welcome. Good morning from Aalborg. Kompas Hotel operates as a modern hotel rooted in clearly defined value and history. It is a hotel with both cultural awareness and a social responsibility. The Kompas Hotel originated as a seaman's home in 1905. In 1988, Aalborg shipyard's closure reduced the sailor traffic, prompting a strategy change around 1993 to become a tourist and business hotel open to all. Kompas is a 100% non-profit hotel, where profits from hotel operations go to social welfare work in the maritime sector.
The original 1958 building of the hotel was renovated in 2023 by a local architect with respect for the existing structure and the reference to the area's industrial past and functionalist roots. The renovation carefully balanced preservation, comfort, and modern standards. The new architecture reinterprets functionalism through a contemporary Nordic lens. Minimalist aesthetics of the hotel is focused on calmness and clarity. The hotel founds Seamen's Aalborg, which visits docked ships daily to provide free newspapers from home countries, internet SIM cards, and free transport to Aalborg Seamen Club. A knitting club at the hotel crafts socks and hats for seafarers each December, a tradition over 100 years old. The design has strong attention to details, including the use of brass as a warm accent material. In whole, the hotel is made with a modern Danish design approach. Kompas is surrounded by significant contemporary architectural landmarks, such as Nordkraft and the House of Music by Kup Himmelblau, and closely connected to the city's cultural life and urban movement. The pulse of the city is felt outside, while the hotel's interior offers calm and relaxation. You can find more about the hotel in the description.
This area Østerbro in Aalborg shifted from industrial and arbor-adjacent zones into vibrant, mixed-use urban areas without housing, green spaces, and cultural ties. What do you think about the cities we have seen in this video? Let us know in the comments. We will continue to explore the important architecture of Aalborg in the next episode. See you soon.